What's up, everybody? You're in the right place at the right time. Welcome into a new edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith back with my man 𝗙𝐶 Johnson, CHSN Bulls Insider. 𝗙𝐶 is finally back in the Chicago area. He has been traveling with his Bulls team and really catching some great vibes with his Bulls team because they've been playing great basketball from a team standpoint and also individually. But 𝗙𝐶, let's start it here, man. How good does it feel to sleep in your own bed?
Only one night so far, but yeah, it's nice to be home. And, you know, as we talked about in the last podcast, the vibes around the team, as you mentioned, are very good. So we'll see what they got against the Lake Show back in the UC, baby. Let's go.
It'll be spicy with that one because we know how the Bulls handled the Lakers last Saturday at Crypto.com Arena, 146 points. And so many guys had tremendous games, and one of them was Coby White and what he was able to do for that Bulls team. And it's just been part of just the evolution of Coby White, and we've touched on this on previous pods before, 𝗙𝐶. In fact, if I can run it back to the last three, we've mentioned and had a Coby White segment with each pod because he's been playing, one, great with his skill set, but then also, two, we've seen the leadership role for him really expand, and he's really stepped into that nicely. But getting back to what he was able to do against the Lakers, I mean, 36 points. I mean, this is a dude that has continued to, again, not only shoot the three, but mix his game up from mid-range and, of course, attacking the lane. So right now, he's trying to cement himself as Eastern Conference Player of the Month, hopefully with another great showing with the Bulls remaining scheduled to finish out the month of March. He can get that award, but he's coming into this ball game against the Lakers, which is tomorrow night, with back-to-back Eastern Conference Player of the Week choices. And 29 points, 𝗙𝐶. You look at everything else that he's doing, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, but his shooting splits, not really doing his job in terms of, shooting the ball well percentage-wise from 3 at 36%. But it's just the way that he's scoring the basketball that's been so impressive.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, he's got, to me, a very good shot at winning the Eastern Conference Player of the Month. I mean, if you win 2 out of the 4 Player of the Week awards, that makes you a favorite. Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about Coby on this podcast lately for a reason. I mean, he's doing all this while being the #1 option on the opponent's scouting report. And, you know, his ability to get to the line, he's at 6.9 attempts per game this month, has really added a new wrinkle to his offensive arsenal. You mentioned the 36% three-point shooting. That's on 9 attempts per game this month. So he's doing it at all levels. He's getting a line. He's scoring from 3. And obviously his finishing ability has improved too. So, you know, obviously the Lakers are going to be keyed in on him. They did blitz him quite a bit down the stretch late of that game, but he was getting off the ball and making the right play. So we'll see what kind of defensive game plan they have for him. But I'm excited to see Coby against another premier opponent in the United Center.
Yeah, for sure, because the Lakers are not trying to get embarrassed again with I'm sure a lot of eyes will be on the ball game Thursday night, not only in Chicago, but across the NBA, because it feels like last Saturday and the way the Bulls played and how they were able to do it against LeBron and Luka Doncic. And Luka had a great game. First half, 29 points, but then defensively, the Bulls got after him, and Josh Giddey just being a pest against Luka and really get him off his square. And I understand it was the first game back for LeBron after he missed some games with that groin injury, but still, they played, they were active. I believe LeBron played around 30 or 31 minutes. But this is going to be a team that does not want to get embarrassed again. And so you're going to look for this Lakers group, especially their 2 stars in LeBron and Luka, to really come out on both ends and really set the tone, especially LeBron on the defensive end. But what's been another thing that's been tremendous about Coby is just how he's been creative scoring the basketball at the rim. And you saw some of that against the Lakers on the road Saturday night, and also against the Denver Nuggets as well. I believe he started Monday, 𝗙𝐶, with the Bulls' first points going right, and with a very high floater off the glass. It was a very tough angle shot and was able to bank that in. But he's been so stoic, too, during games at some points, but then especially after games and post-game when he's giving his interviews. And, again, you see the evolution of Coby White, the leader, and it feels like he's just accepted and understands what's needed of him for this team to win ball games and be in position to win ball games.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing is, you know, Billy Donovan had some incredible comments post-game in Denver where he talked about Coby's ability to infuse the locker room with belief. I mean, every time, you know, Coby faces adversity, he looks inward and tries to find a positive mindset to overcome it. And I think that part of his leadership ability is what is so permeated the locker room and I've seen that firsthand. That's what he's mostly grown into as a leader, is his ability to infuse that positive mindset into the locker room. And, this is a guy whose role has been jacked around quite a bit in his tenure here. And it was, again, last offseason with the acquisition of Josh Giddey. And yet here he is playing the best basketball of his career alongside Josh Giddey. Yeah. It's another testament to his approach to looking inward and figuring out how to impact winning despite whatever obstacles are in his way. And I think that kind of transcends and translates to the rest of the locker room.
Yeah, no doubt, KC. You mentioned Josh Giddey. We got to give him some love on the By the Horns podcast, because my man has been showing up and showing out in so many different ways. And I just want to start it here, because we'll get to the near quadruple double. I'm not trying to minimize that nearly happening for Josh Giddey against the Lakers last Saturday, but I'm a guy that, coming from Southern Illinois and playing for the Salukis, we hung our hats on the defensive end, KC. And so my thing is, when I see a guy that had his challenges on the defensive end throughout a good part of the season heading into All-Star break, he's really made improvements on that end. Especially one of the big things was Saturday night against Luka Doncic, taking that matchup and slowing Luka down in the second half, because he finished with 8 steals.
Yeah, and two things about that. First of all, that matchup got spicy. I mean, Luka threw the elbow that one time and got a technical, and there were some other extracurriculars, in that matchup. So Luka was annoyed with that matchup. And the other part that was funny was Giddey didn't know he had 8 steals until he did the walk-off interview with me. Post-game, I told him. He didn't believe me at first on live TV, but I had to assure him that it was true. But, to his point, and this is what I like about Giddey's mindset, is like, look, the dude hung almost 30 on me in the first half. It's like not like I was perfect defensively, but the difference is just the compete factor, because this is the Josh Giddey that we did not see earlier this season, where he just keeps coming at you, staying with it. He's never going to be a lockdown individual one-on-one defender. That's just not the way he's wired. But you can be a responsible team defender, and you can be physical and make things irritable for the opponent. We all know how this NBA is in today's day and age. Good offense is always going to be good defense. That's just the way the league is, especially with the hand check rules. If you can stay with it and contest and compete and annoy, you're doing some of your job. And then obviously a few of those steals just fell into his lap. But, man, you got to give him a lot of credit for the way he has improved defensively as this year has gone along.
Yeah, the compete factor on the defensive end has been the most impressive thing for me. And it's not so much – you see the steals, and that's great, but it's more so just the effort that he's giving rotating when that ball is swung around for opponents. And I've seen that not only from Giddey, but this entire Bulls team, KC, especially against the Lakers, and Denver too as well. Don't want to keep going back to that Lakers game, but in my opinion, it was their best game of the season and what they were able to do, one as a team, then also as individuals on both ends of the floor. But their rotations have been spot on, and it's not easy, especially against a Lakers team with LeBron and Luka, and you have Austin Reeves out there, guys that can make plays for themselves and also others. But it's the same thing against the Denver Nuggets, because despite them not having the Joker and 𝗭晗being out and Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray is still a hell of a player. I mean, he's still an all-star, still an NBA champion, and you have other guys like Christian Brown and other pieces for that Nuggets team like Michael Porter Jr. that can still get buckets when that ball is swung around, especially in catching situations. But we've seen this Bulls team, just the effort, and it's more so going back to the chemistry. And we discussed this going into last Saturday's game against the Lakers on the last By the Horns podcast, was that the chemistry, the energy, the goofing around, the jokingness is really great to see with this group, because it shows you not only do they have the camaraderie, but also it translates to on the floor with them having each other's back. And so I'm sure you've seen that, especially on the road with this team and how they finished that road trip, KC. It has to stand out to you.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing I always say about chemistry is like winning creates chemistry. So, but that said, I mean, there have been times of adversity this season, and this team has never splintered. It is a team filled with serious workers and professional people. I mean, you've got a guy like I don't think sometimes Talen Horton-Tucker and Jevon Carter get enough credit. I mean, these are guys. Talen Horton-Tucker was getting buckets early in the season and prominent in the rotation. He's fallen out of the rotation. Modest Buzelis told me flat out at the shoot-around in Denver that Talen Horton-Tucker has been one of his biggest helpful vets this season. Yeah. That speaks to that dude's professionalism. Jevon Carter, hey, you put him in there. You saw the Atlanta game. You give him steady minutes. he can get buckets, and he does not say boo about not playing. What does he do? He props up teammates. He's always the first off the bench. So that chemistry is certainly improved because they're winning, but it's always been there even in the tough times. And, they're not a great defensive team. I think they're 19th last I checked in defensive rating, but they can be responsible when they want to be. And you've seen that more lately, to your point.
Is it even food? If it isn't fried, 𝗏𝗏𝗻𝐶𝑠, open 24 hours, east of Pilsen. Good fried fish isn't just for Good Friday. 𝗏𝗏𝗻𝐶𝑠, the food you crave.
Yeah, and to those points on Jevon Carter and Talen Horton-Tucker, every single game, every Bulls game, whether it's at home or on the road, but definitely on the road, because I feel that Jevon understands this, that you need to have this it's us versus everybody situation and mentality. He's always standing up on the bench. He's the first one up, rooting guys on, clapping whenever somebody makes a play, whether it's a three or a big-time dunk. You're going to see Jevon Carter with the hoodie on, the warm-up hoodie on, setting up and celebrating his guys, because that's just who he is and just his MO and how he was brought up playing basketball and just his family, because he's a guy that's going to root for you. He's going to support you in so many different ways, but also in practice, in these shoot-arounds, you've seen in KC, he's still going to go at guys. Like, he's not going to take it lightly on them because he can still get buckets. And I love that Atlanta game because he turned back the clocks to his old Proviso East days. I'm not going to say West Virginia because the Proviso East version of Jevon Carter, that's what that reminded me of when he played against the Hawks. He was getting buckets against them. But then also with Talen Horton-Tucker, THT, I'll follow him on Instagram. He's always reposting and sharing clips of 𝗏𝗏𝗶𝗹 𝗟𝗏 or Coby White or Josh Giddey. Like, he's celebrating these guys and saluting these guys social media wise. So one, it's a credit and really a look to both of them professionally, but then also too of how they understand, hey, it's not about me, it's about this team and making sure that we continue on supporting each other. And it's refreshing to see things like that, KC.
100%. I mean, I was talking to Eversley briefly on this, Mark Eversley briefly on this road trip, and we were talking a little bit about that, about the sense that they do target guys who are professional and they do their background on that. And by and large, that's been my experience for the majority of the time I've been on this Bulls beat. I mean, John Paxson and Gar Forman were the same way, and obviously every once in a while you'll get a spoiled apple in the bunch, but for the most part, it's been a professional group to deal with. And the writers that are on the team regularly, we talk about this often. We also have incredible access compared to a lot of other teams. So that's some stuff that fans may not always care about, but they should, because better access means better content. And we have great access to these guys. And it's a refreshing locker room to cover for sure.
Yeah, speaking of that access, KC has a couple of things that he's going to send to the people. And we're going to start with the first one, because at Bulls practice today, KC, you saw one guy that has been out for a little while doing something that we haven't seen him do in a long time. So I'll just step back. I'll fall back. I'm passing you the basketball. KC, get your buckets, man. Go ahead and shine.
Okay, because you're being Lonzo Ball while I talk about Lonzo Ball. That was an easy alley-oop. Even I can note that one, man. I think I can still touch the rim. I was talking with my son the other day. Like, he said, can you still touch the rim? I'm like, come on, man. I'm 6'4".
Hey,
I can still touch the rim.
Okay. Are you gonna do like the Marcus Johnson thing? The Milwaukee Bucks still dunk?
Tennis ball, maybe, but not a basketball. No chance. 0%.
Do the tennis ball, KC. I think you'll still get the hooper cred. You still got the hooper cred, man. So do the tennis ball. I'm right there with you.
I'll try that. But anyway, you set me up Lonzo Ball style to talk about Lonzo Ball. So Lonzo Ball scrimmage full today, 5-on-5. We watched it. We were actually let in. And shout out to Peter Patton, 51-year-old Peter Patton, who was in that run. There were multiple low-minute players and then the player development coaches, but usually it's just the three young whippersnapper player development coaches. Our guy Peter Patton, 51 years old, was out there today running up and down. So
all right.
I always like to see that. But Lonzo scrimmaged fully, and then right after that scrimmage, he came over and talked to us. He was in a great mood, obviously very encouraged by the progress he's showing now. Two things, though. Billy had mentioned potentially the window of opportunity for him to return was on this homestand. Lonzo shot that down immediately. He said, I need at least another week. He said he cannot follow through on his shot without pain. And he actually said, I'm probably going to not be pain-free the rest of the season, but he is adamant that he is going to return before the rest of the regular season. Now, this is barring, obviously, a setback in a scrimmage situation over the next week. But he's got targeted that homestand of next week to return. So that's great news, obviously, if you're a Bulls fan.
Yeah, and getting back to what we were discussing earlier about Mark Eversley and this Bulls franchise of targeting professional players. Like Lonzo is one of the professional guys. We've seen that time and time again with him, but understanding that I want to be back for this team and I'm going to go through some discomfort with this wrist and go through some pain, but also if I can help my guys, I'm going to do that. I mean, there are other guys, and I'm not naming any names, but we've seen it time and time again, KC, throughout this league's history where they just wave the white flag and say, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to sit this out and just allow other guys to do whatever and think about their next options possibly with another team. So, again, this is great for Lonzo and also to see this, but just thinking about how that can galvanize the team even more, having Lonzo. We know how he is in the locker room, just what his personality is with this group too.
Particularly, great point there. Great point, Cam, because not only is he one of the most respected and favorite teammates inside the locker room, but he is that ultimate connecting piece. And look, he knows he said, I was like a Bulls fan like everybody else. I was watching that West Coast trip screaming at the TV. I was so proud of my teammates. He recognizes the role that Josh Giddey and Coby White are on. He is not coming back to upset that at all. He's coming back to complement in whatever way he can. And that's the best part to me about Lonzo Ball is that ultimate connecting piece. And just he's accepting being a star role player at this stage of his career, right?
Definitely.
And that is my – especially because he'll come back on a minutes limit whenever he comes back. That'll be his role moving forward this season.
Yeah, making sure that I'm sure on the defensive end, and we know this of Lonzo with the size that he brings can help out this team in those areas because he just has that just sixth sense at times of when to come on if he's on the weak side. And you see it time and time again, KC, where a big will catch that basketball, maybe free throw line extended right in the middle of the court, and on the backside is Lonzo coming off for a steal just to pick his pockets for an easy steal and an easy transition bucket. So those pieces will for sure help this Bulls team. And then also you got another guy that's going to fit right into things seamlessly as we've seen in his time with the Bulls of making the offense flow and, you know, making the right pass and making the extra pass to guys that are in great scoring position. So I'm excited for that, KC. I know like you talked about Lonzo and him, you know, just being energetic and, you know, the energy for him when you spoke to him just was really high. I would feel the same way if I hadn't played 5-on-5 in a long time and I get back out there and get some wind and kind of feel that breeze as I'm bringing up the ball up the court. So I understand it for Lonzo, but did he go at Peter Patton? Like, did Peter kind of like take it easy on Lonzo? I mean, what were the numbers for Peter when it came to that 5-on-5?
He and Peter were on the same team, so,
okay.
I watched Peter.
Moved by Peter.
Yeah, I saw Peter grab one rebound and push it up himself, so that was pretty sweet, man.
Okay, all right. Shout out to Peter Patton. Have a little flashback right there, man, for this team. So that's great to see. So as we move forward, KC, and you look at the remaining schedule for this Bulls team, and off the point of Lonzo trying to get back before things are said and done for the regular season with the Bulls, 10 games left, starting things back at home against the Los Angeles Lakers on Thursday night, which is tomorrow. When you look at this group for this final stretch, and we know that we're going to be playing basketball, what do you think they finish out at? I know it's hard to predict that, but just the way that they're going and this team and some of the games that they have remaining, of course they have the Lakers, as I mentioned, but Dallas, OKC. But then you're facing off against some teams that aren't necessarily trying to win ball games like the Portland Trail Blazers or the Washington Wizards or the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the Magic schedule. The Magic have a 2-game lead, and they have obviously come up with some big wins lately, including over the Lakers at home. So I personally think it's going to be tough to catch the Magic. The Bulls do own that tiebreaker, so if they finish tied, the Bulls would finish. They'd be in that 7-8 plan rather than the 9-10 plan. But they'd probably be – I don't think they catch Atlanta for sure. So that would be a road game then to start, but then – obviously, you have the ability to lose one there and play another. But I mean, I probably think they're going to finish 9th, which would be a home playing game, but then you're facing a do or die right from the jump.
Right.
So we'll see how it plays out. But, they certainly are playing at a very high level right now, and I'd like to see if they can continue that, especially because they've played better on the road this season than at home, and they have more home games than road games remaining.
Yeah, a couple of back-to-back home games coming up for the Bulls. Thursday against the Lakers, Saturday against the Dallas Mavericks, then back on the road to face off against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that'll be interesting on a number of different levels, especially with Josh Giddey making his first return back to Oklahoma City since he was traded for 𝗪𝗛će Caruso going back to the offseason. But you have a Bulls team that has really found their stride is really impressive. We've seen them grow in so many different ways. I'm not sure if you've noticed this, KC, but I've seen 𝗻𝗂ce 𝗶𝘶 go from being a clean shaven baby-faced rookie to now sporting the goatee. Like I'm looking at him like, wait a minute, where did this goatee come from 𝗻𝗂ce? Have you noticed that with 𝗂𝗍 and how he's like growing a facial hair now?
Oh yeah. I sat down with him in Denver after shoot around, so I saw it. Yeah.
So growing up in those ways as well. So again, we're going to make sure that we provide you the best and the latest with this Bulls team. And KC is definitely going to do that. This is the other piece when it comes to the access I was discussing. He gave the Lonzo piece on him playing 5-on-5 for the first time in a while today at Bulls practice, at the end of Bulls practice. But here's the other piece, because KC is sitting down with one Coby White for an exclusive interview that will be broadcasted on Bulls Countdown Live tomorrow night before the Lakers game. So KC, when you think back to that conversation that you had with Coby, what stood out to you from what you heard from number zero?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've covered Coby's entire career, so I feel like I have a good professional relationship with Coby, and a lot of things stood out. But if you're asking for the headline, to me, he really was he was very honest about his initial reaction to the Josh Giddey trade. I mean, this is a guy who was asked to be on the ball last season, and there were a lot of doubters about him being able to be on the ball. And what did he do? He finished second in most improved player and had his best season of his career. And how was that rewarded? It was rewarded by the franchise trading for a lead point guard in Josh Giddey. And I knew all this stuff because obviously my job as a reporter is to know what's going on with the team, but I didn't know if he would go in depth about it on camera, and he did. And obviously, as I said earlier, the best part of the story, if you're a Bulls fan, is he went from that reaction to now playing his best basketball of his career alongside Josh Giddey. And he talked about that evolution in their relationship, both on the court and off the court. So I always say in these kind of interviews, man, I just appreciate guys being honest and being vulnerable and open and showing trust. And that's what he did in this relationship. I mean, not everyone would admit that on camera. So that's not me or my questions. That's Coby being real and being human. And sharing that with viewers, because I think it gives more insight for fans as to how these guys tick. And I always appreciate when athletes do that.
Look, must-see TV. Tomorrow night, Bulls Countdown Live. It's going to be at 6:30. Make sure you tap into it because KC, Coby White have a great conversation. I saw a couple pieces, KC, and I'm like, man, I just want to watch the entire thing because it was that good of a conversation. But, of course, you can always stay tapped in with everything Chicago Sports Network. Of course, follow us on social media. Stay tapped in with 𝗻𝗄C Johnson. You know his when it comes to his social media as well, what he's doing for the network with CHSN. He's got the mailbag. He's got the fast break. He's jumping on by the horns. KC is everywhere. And we appreciate his time, especially when it comes to being on By the Horns. KC, thank you so much, man.
Always a pleasure, Cam. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that will do it for this edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Know that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. And before I wrap, KC, I'm holding it to you. You got to get the tennis ball. You got to show me that you can still dunk, man.
I'll be doing some stretching for you next week. Got some stretching in my future.
All right, everybody, take care.